Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and Johannes Languth, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Alexander Greb. I am Consulting Director at CBS Corporate Business Solutions, and you are listening to Transformation Every Day. My guest today is Christine Grimm, former DSAG board member and now founder of dxfrontier. Christine has been one of the most outspoken voices in the SAP universe over the last decade, pushing the conversation from technology for its own sake to what really matters: people, culture, adoption, and outcomes. In this episode, we talk about why legacy first often means leadership last, how partners can shift from implementers to true innovators, and why embracing cloud, AI, and radical simplicity isn't just smart, it's survival. This one's full of hard truths and practical insights. Please enjoy my conversation with Christine Grimm.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. That's great. That was great. Unfortunately, I would say this is quite often still the truth or the reality. And I mean, let's be honest. Imagine, outside business world, things are changing, and that's a natural way. And even if we don't like it, we have to adapt it. But in business, sometimes we are still stuck in the 20s SAP GUI screens, and I think that is a traumatic situation, and we need to ask ourselves why that happens and who has to take the responsibility for that. And it's always easy to blame SAP or to blame the partners or to blame the others, but most of the time it's the problem within the organization. We have, you always talk about that, the big legacy systems. We have our standard, we have our own standard, we have our legacy systems.
Exactly.
Technical complexity is overwhelming. And of course, yes, it is. That's absolutely true. And SAP landscapes and implementation projects, they are a massive challenge, but we need to ask ourselves why. And the challenge is most of the time not the technology. Most of the time, it's the question, why do we need to change? And that is an honest answer. Why do we need to change? Why can't we just stay on what we did for the last 30 years? I don't know. And the cost of the transformation versus the cost of doing nothing is something we really need to answer, because we need to focus on, how can we, after the next coma, 20 years later, wake up and have a, maybe a more advanced situation and more usage of, that technology change. And we haven't even talked about AI coming up the road.
Jesus, so early in this podcast, and we're talking already about AI. Let me say something different first, because thank you that you be here, Christine. Welcome. We're recording now. I was a little bit late in our already ongoing, very interesting discussion to press that record button. We have Christine Grimm here at Transformation Every Day. Thank you very much. I'm really, really, really stoked that I have you, because you have been on my wish list for my old podcast back then already, a few years ago. And I'm sure it's also a lot of people in my audience. We are very happy to have you here, because you have been in the last decade one of the most outspoken voices in the SAP universe concerning technology, concerning transformation, concerning actually moving forward. And that's why you have a place in the heart of everybody who is really interested in getting things forward. Thank you that you're here. And we talk about a question which I think it's very important, because to understand now, like 10 years after the release of S/4HANA, and we're still in many cases talk too much about technology instead of usage. We asked the question, would somebody who would have been in a coma for 10 years and who is working for an SAP company, SAP using company, would this person, or would there be a high probability that this person can now go back after 10 years into his job and without really any change continue working? because nothing really has changed. And I think we came to a very important point. We unfortunately talked again about technology and not about user. Do you think that this person who slept for 10 years would come to let's call it maybe an SAP or DSAG event and listen to the conversations? Would it be surprised about, hey, they're still talking about the same things?
Well, I would say, as you say in German, one says so, others say so. Both, fortunately. But unfortunately, there would probably, that person would still think, okay, not so much has changed during the last 10 years. And that's a tremendous, horrible situation. Just imagine in your outside business, in your private life, in society life 10 years before. And we would just ignore all the change and all the, the rapid changes and the technology changes and everything around us. So unfortunately, in our daily business life, there are things meaning like tools, technology, cultures, habit, processes, which probably still the same for years and decades. And that's, we need to wake up here, because that is an absolute alarming situation, I would think.
That's something what I'm, for example, asking myself quite often. When we look into our private lives, we treat new technology completely different than when we go into our offices. I think nobody would, in a way, still think about using flip phones or something like that. If that person's not weird, or if you would do it, you would probably consider to be weird. Yeah, the guy with a weird old mobile phone, the vintage person. But with our enterprise technology, we are much more conservative there.
Yes.
What do you think are the reasons for this?
I think that's sometimes in your private life you choose it. Yeah, you choose it. You are the person to decide you want to change. And in businesses, in corporates, you always pretend to be forced to be changed. And that's something which our management systems, our learning systems in companies, they grew by knowledge. I'm more important than you because I know something that you don't know. And also hierarchies tended to evolve from that situation. In the past, there have been people knowing more than others, and they became, leaders, managers, and so on. If you now push people out of that comfort zone, you make them, so to say, knowledge naked. You make them unpack their knowledge backpack, and you make them jump in a situation where they maybe think they're not important anymore. And that whole cultural mindset is much more important than the whole technology situation. And the hardest barrier isn't the technology. So that is the problem. And if you don't help people to overcome that part, help them being curious, help them being brave, being bold as a team, and you have that, you have that guardrails where you think it's safe, it's important, and we need to do that in order to make the company and overall all of us successful tomorrow. So then people always do what people do, because that's a trait humans have. They say, no, I don't know it. It's something new. It's scary. I don't want to do it. And, so you can offer them the best and leading edge technologies if you have the environment in the company to do so, and if you are a bold person and you are doing that. But if you don't take the people along and you help them to overcome fears and that situation of maybe being a little bit naked. Nobody wants to be naked in front of others. Then that adaptation will not happen. And in our personal life, we just can't do it. I mean, if we mess it up, nobody sees it. It's probably just us, and we have to be honest to ourselves. So that's, like always, it's not technology. It's the people in that whole organization.
This is an excellent point, because, of course, you take away from people the whole justification why they did their job, why they were good at their job, because they were very good in using this kind of technology. which means in consequence that the whole argumentation that a huge part of the SAP ecosystem does towards users and towards customers, with talking more and more and more about technology and about the what in the why, what, how, it's a complete wrong way to do. We should turn back. We should talk less about the what, and we should go much more into the why and the how.
Yes. I would say sometimes, yes. I mean, talking about SAP first, and SAP has made a progress to simplify the journey, but it's still, it's far from simplification. It's far from looking at that whole ecosystem, or that this massive project. It's far from lightweight plug and play and implementing something just by natural way of interacting with tools or applications. So it is a very, very complicated situation, and of course, I would say, in the design thinking, you have that one big slogan: don't fall in love with your solutions, don't fall in love with your ideas. Yeah. And sometimes I think SAP has, sorry for all the SAP people who might listen to that podcast, they should have to eat their own food, because it is, that as long as we don't, if we can't deliver that lightweight, joyful, playful interaction, what's maybe assumed on the PowerPoints, on the presentations, it's very, very difficult to digest. And of course, partners, they are part of that system, and they are part of that problem. They have to, for themselves, they have to decide they want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. And sometimes really they repeat the same playbooks. If you're still running, 200 pages blueprint workshops in this 2025, you're not helping customers to transform. You're slowing them down. And, partners, they need to be more mediators. They need to be innovators, not just implementers. And, it has shifted from just configuring a system to, unlocking new ways of working. And that upskilling and that mindset change, that has to happen alongside the partners and SAP as well.
This is so true. If I may jump on that, because when you, for example, I was working in pre-sales and sales for a long time, and we had back then, we had this kind of dry demos, for example, that we used to show our solutions to the customer. And I always had the feeling that was the worst approach, because you came into the comfort zone of users where they feel at home, and you showed them something completely different. And what they saw was, the things that I'm used to, like here a radio button or here this, is completely missing. And he's talking about something completely else. He answers maybe some questions about the technology, but when he leaves, I'm as a user even more skeptical than before, because everything that I know or what was told me in the past was the way to go is now not there anymore. But it's not told me in my own personal context how what I have seen now is actually better. And in a certain way, these kinds of demos never have died. We have now these kinds of immersive experience rooms. SAP has massively invested in that. And so the things got more colorful and so on. But in a certain way, what I criticize with them, still, it's a lot like, when we are on vacation and we try to talk to people who do not speak our language, then we try to make it better by talking louder and slower.
Exactly.
And this is, in my opinion, a little bit how this whole conversation has evolved too. It's still the same thing, but it's louder and slower. And now we expect that the user should really get the message.
Yeah. And that whole listening and understanding and adapting, the problem area, and to transform that into a solution area together with the customers. I think that's so important. And nothing kills trust faster than over-promising, to be honest. Customers deserve transparency. They deserve clear risks, realistic timelines, and honesty about, that hard, mudded way we have to go through together. Well, we all as you know, as the ecosystem, and that honesty that builds confidence and not fear. And if you know the trust of confidence, because you keep, you know, blueprint, standardized project approaches and try to, you know, to cover it over all your different customers from different industries and different projects. That makes the other part at the table, you know, and we should all be at the same part, to be honest, that makes them, you know, that creates that gut feeling that something is not right. We need a story of value. We all can share, and we need to understand that. And that's a little bit part of that whole, I think, that whole problem with SAP trying to tell that one story of value for all the customers. And that's partly right. I mean, not talking about, you know, the necessity of a transformation in general, you know, of cloud. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. That's that one story of value. But, you know, the challenges are much deeper, and they have much more varieties of you know, history and legacy and change and you know, the necessity to be much more open and to listen.
Fully agree, and the story can be the same for commodity processes. Yeah, if you are in different industries, finance in many cases is not so much different from other industries. Yeah. It's a commodity process. I know finance people do not like to hear this, but it has, let's say, certain elements of a commodity into it. But for other parts, it's different. And there, of course, you have to be very, very industry specific. Do you see from your experience in the different industries and regions, differences in this kind of adoption rates of new technology, where you say like, okay, this industry is maybe a little bit faster, this industry is maybe a little bit slower because of those and these reasons?
Hi there. Quick break for a short message before we go right back to the episode. Enjoying the insights and stories on transformation every day? Want to make sure you never miss an episode packed with practical tips and best practices from the SAP world, featuring conversations with some of the most interesting people in the SAP universe? Then hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform, whether it is Apple, Spotify, or any other you use. And if our podcast brings you value, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us. Thanks so much, and happy listening.
I wouldn't say in general. I mean, of course, there is this outside market pressure. You know, I mean, automotive industry is very much in the focus, and they need to be very quick in order to survive. And I would say manufacturing is coming along. Mid-market in general, mid-market as being mid-market, not as an industry. I think they're still struggling, but I think, you know, I think the most inconvenient thing for companies is if you have to react because of outside pressures or market pressures. The best thing is to react before you need to react, or to act before you need to react. And I think there the mid-market is in general a little bit less aware, or maybe they are getting more and more aware every day, but I think they're still struggling too much. And of course, there is a tremendous cost pressure, a resource pressure, maybe an cultural age pressure, a generation change. So that is very, very difficult. But in general, I would say it absolutely depends on, you know, the mindset of the organization and the culture of the organization in order to be able to move faster or slower, or still, you know, wait and see what happens.
And unfortunately, outside pressure is in so many cases the most, most clear reason to do something. Yeah. I by the way, a few weeks ago I had a conversation with a CEO of a company who said and it was quite interesting how he expressed that. He said, listen, in the whole years before Corona, we basically wasted our time by doing nothing, because it was not difficult to grow. You just had to get stuff out of your warehouses. Yeah, that was your main objective, to do something. Now we realized that, damn, our systems do not really fit to those new kind of business models anymore, and so on. And automotive is, like you said, probably in that area the industry under the most pressure in the moment, because they were in a winning streak for decades, and now especially the German industry, they have to evolve. Do you think the decision logic now has changed? So the reasons to do technology advancement in contrast to maybe the decisions they did 5 to 10 years ago?
I mean, of course, that pressure can't be ignored anymore. And I mean, companies like to say, they're being careful by delaying change. We're good in what we did. Why shouldn't we be even better tomorrow when we do the same thing? And, that reality, I would say, hits a lot of companies and industries very, very hard. And most of the time, if you say that, it's not caution, it's just avoidance. Transformation is very, very uncomfortable. And postponing is just another way of, to be honest, we stay in our comfort zone. And there is no perfect moment for transformation. Never, ever. Any company said, okay, now currently we have absolutely nothing to do, so let's do a massive corporate transformation. I mean, of course not, yeah? And if you wait for that moment, you are behind. And if you wait to start, you are behind. And I know we are already quite a few moments into that discussion. I need to bring up AI. And the technology doesn't wait, yeah? Your competitors don't wait. So I would say the urgency of starting is maybe much, much higher than 10 years ago. And of course, during Corona, a lot of companies took the chance to start back then. And I think those will be way ahead from those who still said, okay, it's Corona, we need to cut down everything, we need to cut down the costs, we need to, and so it's now almost 5 years after Coronas. So, that field is getting clearer and clearer at the top.
And you use these two letters, which at the moment are dominating every discussion with AI. I think nobody really has anything of a clue what awaits us, in the next 10 years based on that kind of technology. And anybody who claims that he knows that or has an idea is probably lying. When we put all of this into consideration, do you think that, and we always talk about the major roadblocks in technology adaptation, do you think this kind of additional point, with the industries that are disrupted, with Corona that has kicked us in the back in the last 5 years, and now comes AI around the corner, is this pressure so high, that it's actually putting all the roadblocks away, because nobody really can in his serious mind state that, no, I do not have to change. I'm continuing with my old ECC implementation like this. I'm perfectly prepared for the future. Or do you think okay, we probably still have some discussions to lead there?
My personal opinion is we have a lot of discussions to start, not even to finish, to start. And my opinion also is, yes, there are too many companies who still think that is fine what we did. Yeah. And maybe there are a lot of companies who say, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, we don't know where to start. And, it's just wait. Let's see. Maybe it disappears. So the reality is it will not disappear. And the reality is it's even another obstacle and challenge you need to overcome. I mean, if you still struggle, talking back in the SAP world, if you still struggle adapting S/4HANA cloud, and you think, well, maybe my whole on-premise legacy is fine, and we just do a brownfield migration from ECC to S/4HANA, and that will do in the future. Yes, that might do for these people who make the decisions, because they will probably not be in their jobs when the results of that decision really comes into reality. But if you talk about, those companies with that mindset, and you still struggle on moving into a cloud, or, getting rid of the legacy and so on. And then on top, you need to bring AI, not as a trophy, but, as a really tangible business value into life. I mean, that will never happen. Yeah, to be honest, that will never happen. So yes, we need to start that conversation very, very quick. And actually, we need to be even quicker, because it's not about, digital maturity, becoming the awareness in the company that something has to happen. Otherwise, we are not relevant anymore. This digital maturity is not, it's not something you celebrate once. Oh, we did a project. Oh, we are now on S4 on premise, and now we are at leading edge. It's a behavior. It means experimenting. It means learning. It means adapting. It means getting used to new technologies, getting used to AI showcases, really, exploring, giving people the freedom to really learn with that rapid change, which definitely every week, every day, something new happens in the market. And if we always think why we should not do that, in order to think, okay, how can we adapt that? Those companies will not be relevant in 5 years. That's a bet I will do in the future. And to be honest, real impact happens when we as a company have the freedom to talking AI, we have the freedom, and we have the mindset to have AI sort of, and that learning with the new technology, with data, with, training data, creating new solutions, seamlessly integrated in our daily work. I mean, that is already a future status, but, those companies who really open up and understand and accept, that this change is there, and we cannot escape from that. We cannot escape from that, from the speed of technology coming to us as companies, to us as society, to us, to the world. If we like it or not, it's there. So we need to find a way to really use AI as sort of a digital companion, and sort of something which will not go away anymore. And yes, this is something, I mean, I could go on forever, but it scares me a little bit when we sometimes have discussions also with customers, and they still struggle about why we should implement Fiori, and why we should, AI cases within our legacy, database architecture in our data centers. And I think sometimes, no, that will not happen. That will not happen. And it scares me a lot.
But probably one of the reasons why we have to be scared for this is that I think the word transformation has, in many discussions, the wrong note in a certain way. Yeah, that we talk about transformation, and when we talk, we unfortunately mean quite often we implement now a tool and everything changes, everything is different. And then we find out later, okay, we spend some considerable amount of money and nothing really has changed.
Yeah.
And is maybe the conversation about implementation projects one part of the problem? Because that's how everybody, the one earns this money, we are selling the software, the other one earns the money, we are implementing that. But nobody really asks the questions, listen, you are working in this kind of area. I come into this game of yours with a clear vision, how these new kind of tools can help you with your situation, with your strategy. But before that, of course, and this is in my opinion, from my experience, the problem that so many companies and organizations have, you have to talk about the strategy, what you actually want to achieve, or how do you see your future. Many people have no clue, in my opinion, what their future could be like. Many have no strategy. And because there is this kind of big word of transformation, and now we implement something, we give them the excuse not to really think about their strategy, but the possibility to talk about implementing technology gives them the chance not to really think about it, and the excuse to shift everything over to SAP, to the technology and so on. And as such, not cover the topics that would have been necessary to be done first. Do you see it similarly, or what's your experience about that?
Fully agree. And I mean, that buzzword transformation, of course, I mean, it describes the process. There is no other. I've thought a lot about, well, maybe we should use another, another tag for, but there is no other tag. It's changing something, and it's a process. It's not ending, and there is no ending, and it's not the next big launch. It's not just one thing and then transformation is ready. It's about showing up every single day with the courage to take the next step forward. Even if it's small, even if it's no one watching, but it's something we need to be aware that transformation is being ready for the future, adapting the changes, the digital maturity and the culture, and, looking in our own mirror. Everyone needs to look in their own mirror and understand what's his part and also his responsibility in that transformation process within the company. Not his personal, preserving his personal comfort zone, but still being part of his role, making the company successful. And that's also, I think, part of a big problem, because, if you don't make people responsible, if you don't make people seen or heard, and if you don't involve them in what's necessary to be heard and to be done, also the inconvenient things, they won't be at your side. You won't be as a team, coping also the difficult times. And this is, I always say, it's the technology is changing, yes, but the reluctance lies within the people, the culture, and what companies create in spaces for people to really, be part of that game. And to be honest, everyone wants to be part of a team, and most of the people will want to be part of a team or part of a game. So that is, from my opinion, that is the biggest problem. Outdated technology is one part, but outdated management systems and organizations is a much bigger problem.
I would like to quote you now, because you said something in our conversations before, which I thought was absolutely fitting. You said legacy first often means leadership last.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that, how you came to that conclusion, and how do you think can we break the circle? Because I absolutely agree. Whenever you see somebody talking desperately about his legacy systems in those typical ways, like we've always worked like this, and we have so much investments in that, we have to secure these kinds of investments, or this kind of sunk cost bias and so on. This shows that there's obviously no direct vision about the future. How do you think organizations in these kind of situations, in these kinds of circles, how can they break out of this? Exchanging the leadership?
Yeah. I think, maybe I think sometimes in a situation as you as you just explained, is I think it's sort of standing with the back at the wall, but you have to always understand why companies or people think that. And sometimes I think when companies or organizations stick with their legacy, it's not, and I think deep inside they know it's not always the best option, but it feels safe. It feels familiar.
Less risky.
It's sort of an illusion of control. And change always feels riskier than staying in your comfort zone. And holding on to that old system, saying, leadership last, means it's an excuse for hard leadership decisions. Because we know that when you start something new, you have to convince people. You have to have a goal. You have to have a common goal. Everyone understands and accepts. And sticking to that goal is the hardest part on the project. And in the past, I always said, before we start a project, we have to describe the objectives and the goal. We don't have to describe the way, but we have to describe the situation, what will be at the end if we achieved that. If we manage to implement that project successfully. And everyone in the whole project team organization has to understand these objectives in the same way. And it takes a lot of time to really, maybe cut it down to 3-4 sentences to really describe what is the outcome and what is the end result. And sticking to that goal and to that path is a very, very hard. It's the hardest way in project management because it's so easy to, escape left and right from whatever you need to do because it's inconvenient and hard decisions are always inconvenient. Nobody wants to be a bad guy. Everyone wants to say, fine, perfect, we are all great, super. Okay, let's do it this way, let's do it that way the next day. That's not getting you anywhere. And these hard decisions, sticking by an opinion, having an understanding of what the right way in the future might be, that is difficult. And that's why a lot of companies stick to what they have, because you don't have to retrain your management. You don't have to retrain your, leadership skills. You don't have to retrain. There is in IT, you always tend to be, there is just technology and processes and cost. But you tend to neglect that there are people. Yeah? And with people, there's always an emotional, human part of it. And this is very hard.
But do you think, since this whole area, since decades, is defined not by outcomes, but by activity, everything that we approach in that area, be it RFPs or be it offerings or proposals from SAP partners, for example, it's always proposed for activities like I support you doing that and so on. It's never concerning outcomes. And it is so normal to do it like this that it is hardwired in our brains. I have sometimes the feeling that we're always talking about the activity, not about the outcome. And we measure ourselves in the activity, in the man or person days that something like an implementation cost. That's something we talk about, not necessarily in do we actually achieve the value out of the implementations? Are we now better than before? Because this is much easier for SAP partners, for example, to propose to a customer. An activity is easier to sell, like, for example, an outcome. Do you think SAP implementations partner are in that a part of the problem instead of part of the solution?
Partly, yes. But also if you look at the way where those partners come from, and they need to adapt the change as well. So change is not, very black and white speaking, change is coming from SAP towards customers and of course partners, because they are in between and they need to, translate the story of SAP in tangible solutions. And they also have big organizations. They also have a success story had in the past. They also have, a legacy in their organization, in their people, in their culture. So they need to really, really start to change in exactly the same and even higher speed than the customers, because you have to have a partner at your side who you can rely to, who you can trust, because you know that the partner will understand your problem. And I think today consulting and also needs more boldness, needs more curiosity. Customers, we don't want, I'm talking still as we, well, I'm not a customer anymore, but we don't want to stage progress and process. We want somebody to listen and to understand our problem and to really translate our solution in a value story. And, we don't want, I don't know, a list how to implement 365 services or solutions or something. We want somebody who understands everything which comes from that transformation process, the technology, the process, and the culture. And I think this is part where partners need to be need to play a much bigger role. That means also upskilling the people, creating that same digital curiosity and mindset in the organization, being always leading edge, trying to really, to look at that whole variety of complexity within a customer organization, and not having, a 200-page playbook. Okay, project A, I did in that way, and in the future I will do it exactly the same. That will not work anymore. So yes, they can be part of the solution, but still they are part of the problem as well.
So if you would build your perfect SAP consulting partner, it would not be somebody who would do the configuration, or not, of course, not only, but somebody who understands the strategy, knows how to manage the change, and is able to deliver that value by making the technology adapting perfectly to the situation, and as such bringing the customer, or enables the customer, as I always say, to do things he was not able to do before.
Yeah. Transformation doesn't happen in a PowerPoint universe, so to say. Yeah? It happens exactly there where customers fight their daily battles. And I think asking the right questions with the right people and truly understand the problem, not the perceived problem, the problem, and being, someone we hand in hand try to struggle that, try to battle that problem. I think that is something I would wish from partners. And of course, partners, they have to create revenue as well, so they have to make their money, fine. And I think that business model, how that whole ecosystem, and talking about SAP as well, creating revenue and money out of adoption. Is something which should change, because if you don't look at the adoption rate, you immediately ignore the customer success. And I know adoption is not equal to success, but it's probably a better a better score than just deploying something. So the focus has to be the customer success and the customer value, or the company's value, as the North Star for everything partners do and SAP does as well. That has to change. And from my opinion, always a good conversation starts with listening and asking the right questions. Technology. So I haven't mentioned technology at all, because technology should be easy and lightweighted, and technology should, so to say, deploy itself, and the business value coming out of technology. That's something we have to, together as partners, as SAP, as customers, we have to build.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a very important point, because adoption was actually measured as deployment. Deployment was adoption, which means, like, if you are having that or sold that or in that way, you deployed it basically. And that in the past, in my opinion, caused so much damage, because it was a false friend. It turns, for example, a seller into somebody who just wants to get his things out. Yeah, lean conversion and so on. Doesn't matter if there's any value. It matters if the customer actually uses that. It made consultants to something like a accomplice of customers who do not really want to change. Yeah, but because nobody said, hey, you should not do it like that. You're jumping too short. You should do a little bit more. Yeah, you should go on not just on a technical conversion. You should treat it as something strategical, and do more in that. Consultant in many cases did not really do that. Yeah, because a good consultant is somebody who fulfills the wishes of his customer, even if he does not agree to that. Yeah, and as such, the customer success is, in my opinion, something which so many in our universe did not really comprehend what this is all about. Do you see any trends or any, let's say, voices and so on who go much stronger now into the way it's not about just doing things, it's about doing the things right. It's about not going through the cloud for cloud's sake, but going through the cloud because it turns you into something which is better prepared for the challenges of the future. Or as one of the lonely voices in the community in the last 10 years, do you see still like we need much more people who talk in the same way like we do?
I think there are a lot of people, and I mean, you are one of the ambassadors for the change, of course. And you know, I mean, thank God. The problem is today, if you look in LinkedIn and sort of it's a I don't know, it's a hate love, and I'm sort of always struggling in between being very annoyed from LinkedIn and the algorithm and being interested because you know you tend to get you always tend to get the same blah blah, and but still there are so many interesting voices and interesting people, and there's a list, and thank God there is a list, because I think the good thing is those people who those companies who resist any change, they are not as loud on the LinkedIn, or maybe they don't appear in my algorithm. So I think, but still, coming back to your question, I would have to have a look to name. To give you some names, because I don't know yet. I can't answer that right now. But hopefully, or I think there are a lot of people being ambassadors for the future. I personally think that is not enough. I mean, to be honest, if you say something, if you read something, if you hear people on stage, if you hear podcasts, it's still the others. It's away. It's far away. The whole ecosystem has to become an ambassador of change, because customers. A big problem is trust. Yeah, you have your implementation partners, and if they have a business model which comes from, I don't know, the 1990s, and this is a trusted advisor for customers, they will believe whatever they say. There can be, the most interesting keynote stages, speakers, podcasts, futurists on the world talking. If the trusted environment around is not changing, change is very difficult to achieve. And that's why overall SAP, from my point of view, has to be much more tangible and reachable in, approaching the customers. Because, I mean, we know that, yeah, if you SAP, you have a lot of marketing. Of course, we always do marketing. That's fine. But, coming from that high polished, cloud only, super duper innovating cases into the reality of customers, architectures, enterprises, and problems, it's like, this big, call it this big worm stretches and stretches and stretches. Yeah. And the head is in the innovation universe, and the
the tail is somewhere completely else. Yeah,
is still here.
Yeah,
and that is a problem because if you can't translate your message into small, digestible pieces, which can be consumed by customers and can be translated by every partner and, every person, you will have a problem because you will always assume that SAP is expensive and complicated and it's the problem or the solution for the others. And from my point of view, if I would have a wish from SAP to SAP, I would really, really, really wish that we achieve more, more simplicity, more lightness. I mean, so that, radical simplicity. And so we just, it's sort of it's everything starts with a tangible working case. The ecosystem feels really like an app store, transparent, fast. It's not like, oh God, we have to, what service do we need to deploy? Oh my God, how do we deal with the BTP? Yeah. Oh my God, it's so expensive to build a data ecosystem because we need 365 different applications and, subscriptions and everything. So it's very, very complicated. And that is a big problem for that whole ecosystem from my point of view.
I had about that a very interesting conversation in one of our last episodes with Michael Sokolek concerning the clean core and the fit to standard, something where SAP is very, very strongly going to now. When you say simplicity is necessary, would that also, in your opinion, mean fewer options? Yeah, because we agreed in that discussions about one of the problem was to say like, hey, we are like a platform. Yeah, you can do everything with that, which is maybe a very high promise for something, but it's probably a little bit of a lazy argumentation also. Yeah, because when you say like, I'm a platform, you can do everything, you basically completely retract from the discussion about, hey, what are the use cases, the actual use cases that you can do. So is something like fit to standard and something like clean core, which is one of the really strong discussion points at the moment. Is this then the solution? Giving less options?
I don't, from my point of view, just my personal opinion, I don't understand that SAP is giving so many options because all these different options cost a tremendous amount of money also for SAP because they have to maintain, 68 different releases and implementation strategies and hosting strategies. And, that's, that can't be from an entrepreneurship, that can't be the right way, but it's, I always say that's that toxic freedom you create. Yeah. You give the companies, the perceived feeling that everything is fine. Still wait, you don't need to change now. Everything is fine. But that is toxic freedom. And toxic freedom is always the worst thing you can have in a partnership. So I'm a friend of being honest, being clear, and giving clear guardrails. So if I would be the person making the decisions, and a lot of people will say, thank God you're not, but I wouldn't have given customers so many options because it's difficult. I mean, it's like when I'm in a restaurant and I have a menu, which is, my husband, he gets crazy because I will never be able to decide for something. So, and at the end I want what he has. So,
yes. And you always say that the restaurants with the many choices are quite often the worst ones, because the really high class restaurants have maybe like 5 to 6 choices and that's it.
And how can you guarantee quality and everything? So yes, of course. I mean, I had a discussion once with Jan Gilk, and he said, well, for him it's also very difficult because he has to deliver the new solutions, the innovations, and everything, but he still has to maintain a lot of releases, different releases, and this also. I mean, there are also bug fixes and changes which have to be done, mandatory changes, and that that freezes developer capacities, and that freezes capacity which could focus maybe on easy adaptation. I mean, we all dream about an AI agent who just overnight creates our SAP cloud transformed, highly easy, simplified S/4HANA ecosystem. Yeah, but so yes, coming back to your question, I think that's a burden for SAP, and I think that wasn't the right question, the right decision. Sorry.
Absolutely, and since we are now in the advice section for SAP, and we move now to the customers, I think one of the most important changes in maybe dogma would be then to be very clear, and this is my opinion now. You can say something against that if you disagree, but I think one of the biggest lie that we do to ourselves as users is this kind of lie of we are so different than the other one, and my company is completely different than anybody else, and so on. I'm not sure how your experience is. I'm doing this job now for over 20 years, and I think it's not wrong to say that the questions that I came upon in these 20 years at customers are shockingly limited, because so many customers in so many areas are 100% the same. Yeah, it's like you and me. Yeah, you and me, we have 90.99% the same genetic stuff, and the rest then it's that differentiates us from each other. But companies, in many cases, are at a large part absolutely the same too. So first, do you agree with that observation? And second, do you think like this could be, this self-awareness could be the guide of saying like, listen, with that 90, let's be at 98% similarity, we waste so much time because we think we have to be individual in that area that we cannot concentrate on the 2%, which really sets us apart, which really makes the decision also for our customers. Do I buy from this guy or from another one?
Yeah, I fully agree. And my experience is exactly the same. That perceived individualism is just something we made in our heads and in our company. It's not, most of the time, there is no really differentiating business value in behind. And we always tend to ask in projects, try to calculate the business value of that differentiation. And the necessity to really keep that, and how can we calculate the outcome, and how can you value the outcome? And we always try to understand if we have our process and it's a legacy process, and legacy is always technology, process, and organization. Organization equals culture and people. So, and then we have here the standard process, and we always try to explain or try to understand, not to move the individual process into the standard process, but taking the standard process as a given future process and trying to understand what we would need to do in order to keep that. That means sometimes nothing, because it's just have an open discussion. Sometimes you would need to change the organization, reorganize organizations, change the process, change the technology, most of the time with an implementation project towards a new cloud company, cloud architecture. But it's always giving people the chance to argument towards the positive, meaning what would we need to do in order to have that is, make people think and being creative in order to argument, why can't we have that? Do you understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
And this is, for me, sometimes has been an eye-opener when in the people's, in the understanding of the path forward, because if you make people think positive, it's much easier than we always try to say yes, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, nice, but.
That's so German. That's so German.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, it's probably European.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. And yes, I absolutely agree with you. We need to, there is always a part, and also sometimes we have to be realistic. Sometimes the hurdle to overcome that individual process might be sometimes too high because the change might be too big for that special situation or that one step. So we also need to be realistic. There can't be standardizations just for standardization purposes. And, there is a lot of options where you could keep the standard in general, but still have an individualized process, maybe via, I don't know, a BTP adoption or a BTP, not adoption, development or, extension. So extension was the word missing. So, you have to find a balance between getting the customers, the companies on track with the progress forward, and being realistic on the amount of change an organization can really digest. So, but that coming back, I'm quite sure you could easily in an heavy argument find probably always the best, really valuable arguments for understanding that companies are 98% the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and because you mentioned legacy, what I always think helpful as an image is that legacy in most cases is nothing else than your strategy from 15 years ago implemented with the technology from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
This is what legacy is all about. Exactly. And you should be very clear. Are you still the same company than back then? If somebody still does not get it, then you can use, for example, Signavio helps a lot to show them, look like you are working already past your process in so many cases, and you see then people hiding their Excel sheets, which they use for that to convert or to bypass the process. But this is what absolutely happens. But if we move the needle now to our third party, to the implementation partners, what is your expectation to them? How should they evolve, or should have involved? Have not yet done, but should catch up very, very fast?
It's probably about what I said before. Consulting partners, and a lot of them, to be honest, come from the market of R3 implementation projects, or maybe, I don't know, on-premise S4 projects. There are a lot of them. And, in the past, consulting partners and SAP used to ask, what do you want? I can build it for you. Yeah? And the best partner has always been the one who was basically not removable from a customer's organization. So you build your own solutions and nobody else could handle them. And, you always have very complex solutions. And I think this has to change. That mindset has to change in the whole consulting business, because, you need to help like a coach. Yeah. Like a coach, you need to help companies to overcome their problems. I don't know, depending on the objectives of the customer's project. And you need to be curious, and you need to be open for change. And you always need to be open for the radical change in technology, in industries and everything. So more curiosity, less choreography. Being a trusted partner, really talking about, trust, open situation, open the real problems, the real struggles, asking the right questions. And also using AI. AI won't replace consulting. That's
absolutely
that's true. Yeah. But it will expose the weak spots. Yeah. And it forces us to ask better questions, cut through, that whole I don't know, that whole
the fog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fog. And really trying to deliver value instead of this ongoing deliverable and delivery project. So I think partners sort of also must towards SAP. I think there must be a buffer towards SAP as well, because really to help SAP, because sometimes, I mean, as we said before, the reality in companies, the daily business, the daily situations, and I'm not talking about those who still stuck in the 1990s, but the real reality. If a change is nothing you do overnight, and a project is always a massive path. Project is always, now I'm looking for the right word. It's a challenge. Let's call it that way. And partners need to be, in between SAP vision and innovating universe and the reality of the customers, because they need to translate the solutions. They need to understand the problems, also give them back to SAP, talk to SAP, and being really also there, sort of a mediator board. And therefore, customers, partners have to be open for the SAP roadmaps and the SAP visions and everything. And they need to question their business model. I think a lot of them needs to question the business models in the future. Absolutely. In order to be still a relevant partner. So,
and probably you will agree with that. What I think is still completely missing is the customer experience aspect in SAP consulting. Because an SAP project is something which is widely considered as not a really pleasant experience.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work, it's stressful, and so on. Why do we not manage to make it something which the customer after the go live wants to say, hey, this was so great, let's do the next project right after that. Because we found value, it was working great, let's do this again.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, we cannot wrap up without having spoken about the interest groups, DSAG, ASAG, the big, and we can say powerful organizations which shape opinions, strategies, and so on and so on. They are the mediator in many cases between SAP and its customers. And having been a very prominent person in this area, where do you see the role in the interest groups in this kind of topic that we discussed in the last hour, and where do you see they have to evolve, to progress, to change, to still play a relevant role in that?
I'm just talking from my former role, and I was board representative for transformation, of course, transformation and sustainability. So I think in this case, I heavily played the role, giving the DSAG members a vision of the future. A vision of the future, meaning being honest, being realistic about what will happen in the future, the change and the radical disruption which will come, translating them into a way forward within the SAP ecosystem. I mean, talking SAP. And being honest and also challenging SAP, delivering tangible and possible solutions and transformation programs and everything, and not ignoring the actual problems of the customers. A good example was, and I was part of that myself, being an early S/4HANA adopter. You've been, the most valuable and precious customer, being early on SAP strategy, and then the cloud came, and you've been sort of, I don't know, somewhere in the past.
Suddenly you were not interesting anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So we said, okay, you have to recognize that, and sort of you have to motivate customers to do the change again, because you all know, I mean, even being on S/4HANA on premise is not just like easy peasy lemon squeezy, moving to an S/4HANA cloud, private or public or whatever. So we sort of developed a transformation program with the funding to help customers to overcome that hurdle. maybe, and to understand the problems and to understand, BTP adoption. We invested a lot of effort in, training programs and curriculums and things like that. So giving customers, sort of SAP roadmap as a North Star and trying to help them to understand and translating them into, tangible projects and processes. Also, covering SAP and, not covering, but giving feedback to SAP about what is good and what is not so good, and where, all these perceptions from customers different to SAP messages. I think this is something DSAG should absolutely continue, because, we cannot, I always tend to say, in the future, influencing in R3 and on-premise versions was part of, requesting something which then SAP had developed back then, or maybe brought up a new application and things like that. In these days, this will not happen the same way anymore, because, the whole cloud business is different. So we need to help, or DSAG needs to help customers trying to understand the SAP way forward, trying to understand how you could move into that new area or into that new architecture. And this is a different, a different set of tone, and this is a different support. And some would say, well, it's always like speaking SAP after the mouse. No, it's not. You can still have an open and conflicted discussions. That is something we always used to do, but still help companies to move into the future, because it will not help anyone if we always tend to say, it's fine. You can stay on your ECC forever.
Exactly.
It's absolutely okay. And that is, I think, the biggest responsibility from user groups. And I think ASAG is playing the same role, sometimes a little bit stronger, I would say. But of course, there you can't really 100% compare, the US market or the American market and the European market. But still, this is, from my point of view, the role I was playing. And this is something I would hopefully expect from the DSAG still. Let's see who is taking that role.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned that it's a very fine line, of course, that these organizations have to do between, on the one side, being the kind of guide, which definitely means like, okay, they explain, or they have a part in explaining the SAP strategy. But also, of course, the other extreme of being like a union, trying to be, trying to be a voice for somebody who feels a little bit left behind. And maybe, of course, it's not avoidable in the future that some companies will technically advance more like others do. Yeah, because, like you said, we have different cultures. We have different, also, of course, performance levels per customer. For some, it's easier to move to a certain cloud environment, for example. For others, it's not. But I think what we definitely agree on, that the role of these organizations will get even more important in the future, because the technological speed will advance even more, and the challenges that we await will be even more challenging for us. And as such, of course, we need these kind of voices who are in a certain way independent. Yeah, because I think that's what their purpose is. Consultants in many cases cannot really be independent. Some try to market themselves as independent, but I think this is in many cases quite a big BS part, yeah, because you cannot be, as a consultant, 100% independent. Yeah, you have a portfolio, you have competencies, and that shows how independent you actually are. But those organizations can be, and as such, I think they definitely will be even more the one to listen to in the future than they've been in the past.
But still, those organizations, they, remember, it's where they come from. So they need to accept that the independence and, they exist because they want their member companies be successful in the future. And if they are not successful anymore, they will not exist anymore, those groups. So it's very, very important to understand that everything is changing. So we need to be, those user groups, they need to be leading edge.
Definitely. And as we are talking about change and leading edge, a lot of things have changed for you too. Professionally, yeah. You went away from your former job at Freudenberg, and you, let's call it like that, you do now your own thing. Can you tell us about that?
After 10 years within Freudenberg, which was a great experience because, you learn in corporates, you learn a lot, you experience a lot, and I think it's essential for what I do now, having experienced that in that way, because when you go into the software development industry, so to say, and you don't need to be convinced just because you have a very good idea and you start building up castles in the air. So you really know what real problems in real companies are, having talked to a lot of companies in the past and having experienced that also in a big company like Freudenberg. So, and after 10 years, I said, okay, that's a good time now for a change. 10 years is quite a good time. And so I decided to quit my job, and with some other people, we decided to bring our expertise and experience together and form a new company. And that's what we did. So it was a big step, coming from.
Tell us the name.
The name is dxfrontier. dxfrontier. You probably
definitely
add it in the comments or something.
Definitely.
So, what are we trying to do? Basically, we are trying to help companies bridge the gap between, in talking about the SAP ecosystem, because we thought we are staying in the SAP ecosystem. That makes sense. We have a lot of experience there, and that we know the problems. And one of the problems, we are absolutely, my mindset, absolutely cloud transformation, and we want to help customers to move into the cloud ecosystem. And what is the problem today? You in the past, you have this monolith R3 system or this S4 on-premise system, and within there you have your you have your stacks and your development stacks and your data and applications and UI and everything. Now it's much more modularized, and you have your suite, and you have the BTP, and you have maybe a lot of other applications, and it's not just, you probably know that. Exactly. It's not plug and play, and you deploy everything, and it's easily fits together, and everyone knows exactly what to do. That's not the case. And even more, the very, very difficult situation is still implementation projects. They tend to focus very much on the suite and on the processes, and not so much / not at all most of the times on that whole ecosystem, integrating the BTP and, trying to get use out of the value of that, of the BTP. And that's what we are doing, basically, connecting that whole ecosystem by very much AI and automated infused product, meaning a person like me, and I would call myself very experienced processes, consulting, whatever, very little experienced in deep dive heavy technology, and absolutely not experienced in operational BTP deploying stuff. And I'm the persona who could do that. So I can talk to our bot and say, I need a custom app, because I want to be very nice and very standardized and very clean core, but I need something, and I want to do it. I don't want to do it in, somehow, somewhere, and I want to do it on the BTP. So I need a custom app, and the custom app is, I don't know, in that and that process area, and this is the business case, and I type everything in, and basically the bot is doing its magic, and everything is the system is created, the BTP setup is created, the HANA deployment is everything, the accounts are created, connected, everything is set up, and in the background the terraforming runs, and a GitHub repo will be created for the developers where all the the business cases are typed in, and the developer can basically start. And that whole process maybe takes, I don't know, days if communication between business and the developer is smooth and easy, instead of weeks and months. And just setting up a BTP, I mean, let alone the custom app thing, just setting up a BTP with all the accounts and everything up and running. A lot of customers, they don't even know how and who is going to do that. And this is a process, and it's so in the beginning when we started talking about that use case, I mean, of course, people of our team, they said, well, that's very easy. Others said, yeah, we experienced that being a very heavy and painful process. And we talked with a lot of customers, and we got the confirmation that you don't know how to start, you don't know where to start, we don't have the skills, we don't have the resources, and we don't have the operational people, and and the developers don't want to do that because it's not sexy developing things. So that's when we said, okay, we need to jump in there. And so we created our product. It's called dxStarter, and this product is basically helping to bridge that gap and helping business users, or maybe operational people who have no idea how to set up BTP platforms, or even partners which want to, I don't know, speed up their processes in the projects because they have maybe no BTP skilling. This is our target group. And will it be the one and only solution forever? No, probably not. But we think now this is a big opportunity, because in most of the projects, and I've never seen once, I'm not saying all of the project, but still saying most of the project, where that whole setup is coming smoothly and integrated as part of the project deliverable. So,
and what I see in there when you tell me about the functionalities, of course you have the implementation in the beginning and so on, so you have a certain state. Yeah, so the go live is happening and you are starting to work with that. But of course, a lot of new ideas come in that kind of beginning after the implementations, when the users realize, hey, listen, I could do also this like that, and so on. Unfortunately, in so many cases, implementation partner is gone by that moment. So nothing really happens either way, or it happens, but in the way you do not really want. Like it starts that certain departments build up their Excel sidecars and so on and so on and so on. By that, you help not only to democratize additional functionality, but also that it's done in the right way. Technically clean core, and it can be
cost efficient.
And especially it can be done maybe not by everybody, but by almost everybody.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that is the biggest value, because I remember when we now putting on my former Freudenberg head, we've been, I would say, early adopters in a lot of ways. Also within the BTP, I think when we started it back then, it was still called HANA Cloud Platform. I think, I don't know. And we bought that, we subscribed it, and basically it took us at that time years to understand what it's all about, and what's all about, and basically how to structure it, how to set it up, and integrating data and services and development environments, and that is so painful. And of course, when it's painful, also meaning most of the time very, very expensive, because you have to find resources, very expensive external resources, or you have to build up internal resources. So that's when And that was not just a one-shot specific problem within Freudenberg. So within DSAG, we had those discussions endlessly with companies. So we said, okay, that's a good starting point, and that's sort of a blind spot in these whole implementation projects, which could help. Yeah, of course, customers, partners, but also SAP, and of course us as well. So,
and of course, since you are, sorry for calling you that, but you're a seasoned, experienced professional. Yeah, it's not like you're coming out of university and have an idea, but when you have an idea, of course, this is on a foundation of your huge experience you had, not only at Freudenberg, but also, of course, as in the hundreds and thousands of conversations and experience you did as DSAG member. And if the experience of Christine Grimm is in that tool, I think that's already a huge value proposition.
Thank you very much for that Gütesiegel, for that tag. I hope
Fantastic.
So, I mean, we think it's a good thing, and it sort of demystifies technology a little bit, or the complexity of technology, which is always good. I mean, coming back to simplification. And I mean, we have a very, very, very absolutely great tech experienced team. My founding partner, he is basically the technology brain behind all of that. And that's good, because of course I'm an absolute technical rookie, but I can translate business problems, so that's quite good. But still, and that's sort of always the great technology engine is running underneath, and it's very simplified from the UI, and that's something the tech colleagues need to accept, that you can't
absolutely. And the good thing is, people who are interested in that, they not only are limited to listen to this podcast, but they can talk to you on the DSAG yearly annual congress in Bremen. We talked about that you will be there. I will be there also too. I think this will be a very interesting event. When people want to get into contact with you, what else options do they have?
Well, I have a LinkedIn profile myself, and our company as well. So maybe I would assume in the comments of the podcast or of the post, we will maybe add that. So, and I think if somebody wants to find me, Christine Grimm, I think there is always a way to get in touch somehow.
You're not
hiding.
And
I'm open to talk. I'm open to understand the problems and maybe help our ecosystem to eliminate a few of those existing obstacles. That would be nice.
Awesome. And I think we did already in this very nice conversation that we had. Thank you very much for taking your time, Christine. It was a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation, probably in Bremen at the DSAG.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you then.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.